And I'm just going to start. It's not on the script, but I have to go back to why does cannabis not grow well? And I have well, I do have cannabis at the house. Not that we're growing. Yes, and I work for Charles. Yes, but no, I want to go home with a weapon because I hate that skunky smell. And our 4 sons, I mean, it's hard to raise boys, and they bring it home, and then they pretend they smoke it in the house when they think you're not going to know. And I always know why.
Yeah.
And now I can tell my husband, and he'll get on them, and it won't happen anymore.
Well, by the way, nothing wrong with the cannabis industry.
No
judgment. No. In fact, I would prefer it be legal everywhere. But so there's 3 reasons why vineyards and wineries aren't great neighbors for cannabis, and that's number 1, the skunky smell. So if you have a tasting room right next to a cannabis field, it's a little bit difficult to get the layered aromas when you're smelling the skunky smell.
Sense. Yeah.
Second reason is that there's these compounds that go through the air. It also happens with eucalyptus trees as well as cannabis, and I'm not sure what other plants, but there are these oils that go through the air from the cannabis plants and can land on another agricultural product like grapes, and it can potentially affect the flavor of the wine. And then the third reason is that there's some government rules, agriculture rules, very, very strict with cannabis and what they can spray or how they can treat their plants. And if anything goes in the air at a different field and goes through and lands on cannabis, then they can file an order for whatever's growing next to them to stop growing and stop harvesting.
Oh my goodness.
So I know that that's an issue with avocado farms that are neighbors. So, cannabis is a new thing that's becoming legal, and these farmers are trying to learn how to coexist when they have different rules and and obviously you have the smell and different things. I think we're going to figure it out. We'll end up working together, I bet, in the end.
That is what is the most interesting part to me, because I've been on, obviously, if I'm married to someone who loves wine, you're on a lot of tours, right? And the most interesting part are these little pieces of information that I think it's just such an interesting industry in general. And I so appreciate the end result. Yes. So, we're not talking about wine specifically tonight. We're talking about your leadership and how so we're going to start with the first question. How did you prepare over the years to take over the leadership of the winery and also to be on that family board?
So I guess it starts at birth, like it happens for all of you. So preparation for the winery, that was pretty easy, and I was looking forward to that. When I graduated from college, I started studying just on my own, reading as many books as I could about wine. I memorized I had this one book that described typical flavors of every varietal, and I memorized those. And it was a long list for each one. And I remember the surprising ones like cat's pee for Sauvignon Blanc, fruit cake, I think that was Cabernet. I don't repeat these because they're not appealing. So that was one preparation. Just self-study for wine was important. And since then, I've gone to a lot of conferences, and I've got the WSET certification level 2. I started another certification. And also just with banking and with wine, being around professionals, masters of wine, sommeliers, and doing blind tastings, and just the constant education that goes with that, being exposed to it. And then with banking preparation, it was when I was starting at age 14, I worked at every department. And so that was a great education.
That is a great education. Okay. So what challenges did you have to overcome, whether they're real or you're perceived, as you prepared for your leadership roles?
Well, fear.
Yes.
I think that's
fear
the biggest.
Of what?
Fear of what people would think of me. I think so going Going to a board meeting, going to any meeting in the beginning, I, would just feel eyes on me, and I was afraid to open my mouth. And over time, I got over it. One thing that I think was great that my dad did is from the beginning, he put me in rooms that I really did not belong in, with, always older men and who were very accomplished. And I was just this little girl. And he tried to make me feel comfortable in those positions. So I feel like because of that, I do get over it pretty quickly. But yeah, I think that's the biggest barrier is fear. And what do people think of me? Do they think that I belong here? Do they, think that I'm worthy of this? But then when they get to know you and you just try to be real, you want them to like you in the end. And then you even the playing field. Right. And then you can relate to each other as human beings and realize we're just one team.
Yep. This isn't scripted, sorry.
Yeah.
But was there a moment in any part of your career journey where you remember like clicking into that, like, you know what, I've lost that fear. I belong. I'm not an imposter here in the room.
Yeah. It has happened in both places, at the bank and at the winery, like just around the board table, around the holding company board table. I feel like it wasn't long ago, maybe in the past year, where I stopped thinking about what people are thinking of me and too much about what I'm saying, and it really has become 100% about protecting the business and protecting it for my children. And it's sort of like, you all know, when you think about protecting it for your children, it's like you're a mother lion and you will do anything for your children, and that's what it's about. So it really makes every other thought go away. So that really has just happened recently.
Good. Okay. Well, it's a whole journey, and I would agree. I think you need time. You need time to sit and experience before things click in. So you started to tell us about your journey in the wine business. You were describing how you studied for that. But did you grow up with a passion for wine? And what about your education? Did you go to one of those programs? Like, who has one?
UC Davis and Cal Poly.
Yes. Yeah. Like, what was the training to get you where you are today? Because it's a unique niche.
Well, the training really had to come on my own for the wine business. I majored in economics in college, and so my dad always said, like, okay, wine is a hobby, and the bank is really where it's at. But I'm like, but really, I want to go to UC Davis and make wine. That's so much more fun.
Is that where you went?
No, I did not. So I went to Denison University. I majored in economics. I learned how to read the Wall Street Journal and understand the Federal Reserve. And so I forgot, what was the question?
Well, what was your whole education to train you, that brought you here to like know wine?
Yeah, so wine was always at the table, and we were encouraged to drink it and think about it, close our eyes, get really in touch with, what are you tasting? What are the different layers? What does it remind you of? What do you smell? What does that remind you of? So it was really just, it was the dinner table. It was really that exposure. So, when it came time to drinking for the first time, I could not imagine. Wine was like milk, you know how you hear about Europeans. It's just at the table. That's how it was for me.
Wow. Okay. And out of curiosity, are you doing that? I don't know how old your children are. They could be, toddlers. But are you or will you do that with them?
Yeah, I do.
Not judging. Yes.
You're close. I have 5 kids. Five kids. Goodness. Yeah, ranging from 6 to 22.
Okay.
And yes, we drinking wine and appreciating the complexities is part of our family and a part of our dinner table. And I think it's really important to respect that. And even when they're really little, it's okay I think it's okay for them to have a sip and just say, taste this. What do you think of it?
Yeah.
Not do it quickly, but really taste it. Close your eyes. Think about it. What does it remind you of?
Yeah.
And there's just something about just appreciating life in that moment that I think is important.
It's just another one of those shared experiences that you bring, and we all have these in our own unique cultural family experiences. So I would like to be at your dinner table. Okay. Loving it so, yes. All right. This really is the only thing. I'm not a hard liquor drinker. I'm here all the time at the club, and I never order the cocktails. It's always the wine. So have you met the sommelier?
I think I met somebody just walking in who seemed either like the head chef or the sommelier. And
there you go.
Yeah, he was telling me about the wine list.
Okay. So can you share any unique experiences that you have had as you prepared to lead the winery and be on that board for the bank? And what do you enjoy more? That's not on the question, but what do you enjoy more?
That's a tough one. You would be surprised at how much focus a winery takes, more than the bank in a way, because we have wonderful people like Shelley and Ed, and the winery is a smaller team. Mm-hmm. What I really enjoy is, like we were talking about coffee and wine, is that when friends or anybody that you meet and they text you later and they say, hey, I'm really enjoying your bottle of wine or your cup of coffee in this great experience with my family or friends, and it's a memorable experience. So that I enjoy wine because of that. Mm-hmm. But for preparing or like special experiences, I don't know. They both have been incredible and very different, and it all comes back to family. Mm-hmm. I would always choose family over the businesses. I think that's a key. Our relationships are the most important thing, and we're fortunate that we get along really well, and that the business has acted as a conduit, something that brings us together, mm-hmm. More than a challenge. So,
now this isn't on the script either, but are any of you? Throw these questions away that so carefully prepared, but I am curious. Be curious. Are any of your kids, the older ones, inclined? We tried to nudge one of our sons, like, what is the state college, Santa Rosa, I think it is. Are they inclined to go into the business? So they have an advocation for banking or wine.
So the two oldest kids, Stephen and Nolan, they are really into investing. Oh. So my dad actually started investing in 8th grade, and he even convinced a bank to give him a loan when he was like 13. Okay. And so and that is honestly what helped him, purchase the stock from his family, so he could be the only owner of First Bank. And so anyway, my dad's stories about investing at a young age has really inspired my two oldest kids, actually all of them, but so the two of them are really into investing, but it's a new world now. It's cryptocurrency and blockchain, and it's like another language to me. But yes, they are interested in First Bank, and I really think they're going to keep us on our toes. Ooh. Because they watch First Bank, they're customers of First Bank, and they're like, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And I'm like, I don't know, I'll find out. Or just hold on, we have a new website coming.
They know everything. That's right.
Yeah, they know everything, and I'll never keep up. But it's great. So they are interested, and it's funny because I just asked my son yesterday. I said, your Uncle Michael and I were just talking about how long should a child work outside the family business before they come and work for the family business. And Mike and I were throwing around like 3 years, 5 years. And Stephen said, at least 10, maybe 20. And I'm like, well, wait, Uncle Michael might want to retire a little sooner than that.
That is so. You do learn so much from your kids. And I love that whole thing that you know it all, because that's all coming right back to you. I'm living through it, okay?
But I want to add one thing. So my daughter the other day, I told her about these banking classes that you can take online and are really easy. She said, oh, no, I'm not, that's not my thing. And I'm like, honey, you don't have a choice. Yeah. Like, I don't care if you're a veterinarian or you're whatever you are, but you have to know this on some level, So anyway, so it's whether they want to or not, they're going to have to learn something about it.
There you go. And the more you talk, the more I can see how you were ready to be a board member. Being a board member on a bank is it's a lot of responsibility. I mean, there's compliance, there's federal regulations. It can't just be anybody. We can't raise our hand and get picked, but you did, and not just because you're a family member, I'm sure. So can you describe the makeup of the board? Who's on it? How are decisions made, at that kind of level?
Yeah. So the makeup of the board is probably the most important. It is the most important thing that a shareholder of a family business, I think, can think about. And it's something that we talk about all the time. So right now we have a former dean of the WashU Business School, brilliant guy, CEO of a commercial real estate fund, and an attorney who specializes. He's got great knowledge about board governance. And so they are incredible. My brother and I are always talking about who else we need at this time. And I know you're going to have a mentor question, so I'm kind of jumping ahead. Okay. But I recently was asking another founder and chairman of another bank about what makes up the best board, and it's really just whatever your challenge is at the time or where you're headed. So, yeah, that is actually my biggest focus is who's on our board.
Well, and it's the collection of people that make those informed decisions. So what advice do you have for those in the audience about how to successfully establish and then run a family business advisory board? So, again, my brother and I are talking about this all the time, and we're developing it. I think right now, with just the two of us, it's pretty easy because as far as a family advisory board, we don't have that yet. We just have the two of us, so we talk 3 or 4 days a week, and they're very quick phone calls, or we'll schedule something that's long, where we talk about what's going on in the business and make sure that we're on the same page. For the board itself, he's chairman, I'm vice chairman. Major decisions are made at that board, but we have usually talked about it before and after. But I think as we get to the point where I have 5 children, he has 2 children, we're going to need to create a family advisory board. We're going to need, I love the idea of a governance committee or board. So I don't know. So my advice, I guess, is if I was to give any advice, is to plan for the worst. That's what we've done. It's kind of a morbid way of looking at it, but so when you have 2 owners, you think about, well, what if we disagree? We get along really good right now, but what happens if we disagree? So we took months and months to plan out what we would do if we did disagree. And for instance, like we didn't want to put Shelley, we didn't want to put the CEO in a terrible position of being that deal breaker. Otherwise, we would be all taking you out to dinner and lunch every day, sending you gifts. Right, it'd be great wine. And also of the board makeup, you don't want a situation where, I pick my 3 best friends and he picks his 3 best friends. That would never work, and it wouldn't be what's best for the company. We are constantly thinking about what's best for our children and our grandchildren, and that is to keep this business thriving. So what we did was we decided to have nominating committees alternating every 2 years. So I'm the chairman of the nominating committee to nominate board members right now, and that lasts for 2 years. And so we're going to hire a recruiting firm, but we decide together. Shelley's on it, Mike's on it, 2 other board members are on it. So I guess the advice would be if you have 2 people or more, figure out worst case scenario, how will we handle it before it happens? And also, just keeping the best of the company in mind, which I'm sure you all do. Right. And, we heard that also from you, to prepare to get these things done for that next generation. So it just eases their path forward. So in keeping with the theme tonight, who has mentored you and helped mold you into the leader you are today?
So I would say I can't. So my dad was a mentor in one way. My mom was a mentor in another way. But outside the family, I honestly, there's been some wonderful people that I've worked with, but I can't say that I had one mentor. I feel like I'm still getting many mentors and always have. Back to how my dad just would put me in meetings at a young age with people much older and much more experienced than me. It made me not afraid to ask people for help. I was just telling my oldest son yesterday, or a couple days ago, when he was talking about his career path, I said, it's okay to make yourself vulnerable and ask people for advice. Because A, they realize you respect them and you trust them, and B, they'll want to help you if it comes from an honest place, just to give you advice. So I still do that. I still search out when I have a problem. I don't think, I'll never know anything. I didn't get a business degree. Even if I had, I still would really value people with experience who are where I want to be. So if I want our bank to be where his bank is, I'm going to call him up and say, hey, could you spend 1 hour with me so I can ask you about your board? Who's on your board? What do you look for in XYZ? How hard is it when you go through the transition through a certain breaking point of assets with the Federal Reserve? What's that like? Yeah. And people always have been very open, and it's been very refreshing. So I say I'm always just looking for that mentor, just little pieces of advice.
That is a wonderful way to end on our last question, that whole seek to understand and gain knowledge from one another. So we're going to invite every panelist back up. I'm going to vacate this chair, but I'm taking my wine with me. And we are going to ask you to stay, because we're just going to open it up to the floor for questions. And we have questions written in case you don't come up with any. But it's been such an interesting night, and so many different types of experiences. Yeah, I pulled my chair up close so I wouldn't be too far from the wine. But I'll take my favorite and go to the podium. Ladies, come up.